This is a short review of graphing. On the review, there were 3 tables on the mass spring problem. So there were 3 variables that you were investigating in this particular experiment. The first was the mass of the bob. The second was the softness of the spring. The third variable was the original stretch. And you've been asked to graph period versus original stretch. If you're asked to graph period versus original stretch, what you have to realize is the first thing you always mention, which is period in this case, is graphed on the y-axis. In other words, it's y versus x. Make sure you don't mix that up. So period will be on the y-axis and original stretch will be on the x-axis. The next thing you have to remember is that a period is a one up and down bounce, one up and down motion. When it starts repeating itself, that would be a second cycle. Okay, so a period is a one motion. So your original table looked like this. You had stretches in centimeters of 1.0, 3.0, and 5.0. And the data I gave you was for 10 bounces. Well, you want to graph the period, which is 1 bounce, so you have to divide each of the numbers in the second column by 10 to get a period, or a single bounce. So now we have data for the period and the original stretch. You have to put the period on the y-axis, the stretch on the x-axis. Now, one thing you have to remember to do is label your y-axis and make sure each grid on that y-axis is worth the same exact amount. So I start with 0 at the bottom right here, and I count up by 0.2, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6. The next one would be 0.8. Then I have to put my variable, which is period, and my unit in parentheses, which is seconds, on the y-axis. On the x-axis, I need stretches in centimeters. Make sure you label it with the variable stretch and the unit centimeters. And then I have stretches from 1 to 5, so I have to make sure that each grid on the x-axis is exactly the same amount also. So you've seen I've drawn that. Now, the next thing you do is put in your data points. So at 1 centimeter, I have a data point at 0.633. I don't remember. It's on the last page. And at 3 centimeters, I'm about 0.63. And at 5 centimeters, I'm about 0.63 or 0.64. The next thing you have to do is draw in a trend line. So there's the trend line. It may or may not be linear. So if it doesn't look like it's a linear, don't put something in that's linear. Draw a nice curved trend line. And the very last thing you have to do is label the graph. Remember, it is y versus x, so it would be period versus original stretch. Hope this helps for graphing. Good luck on the midterm.